we are the most destructive species on the planet.
Do you think the growth of India is somewhere going to come at a price of wildlife?
You can rebuild these monuments, bring back a language, maybe, right? You can recreate recipes. An animal once gone is gone forever.
We'll only interact with wildlife on a vacation or walking into a zoo. Why is it important for me to worry about what's going to happen to my non-human Indian in a jungle somewhere?
During COVID, we actually saw glimpses of it where people got locked up and a lot of wildlife came back into people's yards, streets. Suddenly everybody's a photographer, everybody is an artist, you have a binocular, you're watching birds on your balcony that you never observed before, right? So the quietness and stillness and joy of nature.
But if we fail to fix this, and if we fail to value this coexistence or the balance of the nature, where do you think this is taking us? Where do you think we'll eventually fail as a human race?
I think we'll lose our soul.
3 generations of efforts going in the right direction. So ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Krithi Karanth continues to make us believe that when it comes to India, it's for coexistence for everyone, not just humans. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of the 𝗧𝗵𝗵 Show. Imagine a tiger walking into a village, not as a metaphor, but in reality. This might sound like a storytelling to you, but our guest today is someone who lives this life every single day. She walks at the edge of where humanity collides with wildlife. One of the renowned scientists in her space, a storyteller, and I would say an amazing Indian in her field, Dr. Krithi Karanth. Krithi, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Very excited to be here and speak with you.
The pleasure is all mine, Krithi. This topic is very close to my heart, and I'm sure as we speak and we walk through your journey, it's going to be extremely insightful and informative for your audience. Looking forward to a great conversation today.
Likewise.
Let us start from the very beginning. You've chosen a field that's unconventional for many, and there must be a reason behind it. I want to find that out, how it all started right from your childhood. What got you into this field? What made you think that you have to do something for animals and play a role for the larger good of everybody who lives around us?
So for me, I think it wasn't actually a choice. It's something that happened very naturally. My father is a very renowned wildlife scientist, tiger biologist, conservationist himself. And so I had 2 very busy parents, both who were scientists. And every time my mother had to travel, she would leave me with my father, and which meant that I spent a lot of my childhood, starting when I was a year old, in the jungles of India. And so he would take me along, and those days they allowed it. Today I can't do this with my own 2 daughters, right? But so because of him, I got to watch animals from watchtowers for hours and hours and hours in a day. I got to learn to track tigers, because he had tigers and leopards collared. I learned how to set camera traps. I also learned how to distinguish bear poop from tiger poop, from leopard poop, from sambar poop, which as a kid is very exciting. I didn't think this is what I was going to do because 2 things. I think science itself is very complicated, and it was amazing watching my father be a scientist. And even more, I think, difficult was to be a conservationist. All the challenges that he faced, people he worked with faced, and the kind of backlash that comes from people not understanding why this field matters, right? So by the time I was a teenager, it had actually really almost turned me off wildlife. I loved being in nature, loved watching animals, but the business of saving animals is not something I wanted to get into as a child.
You think you are destined to be in this then?
I mean, a lot of people say that, but if you ask my dad, I think he would say that he didn't want me to follow in his footsteps. I didn't want to follow in his footsteps. I think today He's done this for 50 plus years. I've done this for 28 years. We have created very distinct trajectories, complementary but very distinct identities and contributions to saving India's wildlife.
And that's wonderful. As a family, you're creating such a wide impact.
And my grandfather was a very well-known environmentalist writer himself. So in some sense, it is 3 generations of the Karanth family carrying this, love for nature forward.
Beautifully said. Love for nature. We'll talk more about that. But before we get into conservation, before we get into science, I'm really excited to understand more from your perspective. Tell us a moment where, let's say, a tiger or a wildlife collided with humans. Any such incident that you would want to bring up that recalls from the memory line that you have?
Oh, there's so many stories of seeing something firsthand, right? And people always ask me, how many tigers have you seen? And my answer is, I don't keep count. I saw my first one when I was 2 years old. Now, 46 years later, 45 years later, I'm still seeing tigers. The joy of seeing them is still the same so many years later, right? But there's enough of these that jump out. A few years ago, I was walking in the forest with my team in Kerala, and we were in a part of one of the parks where people don't normally see tigers. And my colleague Anish and I, we were walking up this muddy road with 2 other people, and at about 100-meter distance, suddenly we see this beautiful tigress. She's bang on the road, and everybody's looking at each other in disbelief, and she's not looking at us. She was kind of looking sideways. And so we got to just enjoy her before she spotted us. And then she turned around and she did this crouch, and literally for about a couple of seconds you're all looking at each other like, okay, is she going to charge, right? But typically with a tiger or a leopard, if you cough and clear your throat, they usually jump away unless you're going at them, right? So, 2 of us did that, and this beautiful tigress just cleared off the road. But then Anish looks at me and he's like, I've been coming to this forest for 20 plus years. I've never seen a tiger. The day you show up, the tiger shows up. Right?
You're lucky charm on this.
Yeah, so I'm like, all the years of hard work, now every time I see these animals, it just continues to bring great joy. And to me, that is still singularly beats any other recognition, accolade, money, whatever comes our way. It is still seeing wildlife and nature.
We call them wildlife for a reason, right? So when you still collide with them in a natural way that you did this time, citing the same example, this is something that you're expecting. This is something for which you go to the jungles. But do you still feel the fear of being in front of? What's that moment like?
No, there is always an element of fear, right? Otherwise, you go to a zoo where there's a barricade and you're protected by glass or metal or whatever, right? That moment of fear has to stay. And this is where I see people getting complacent with filming, photography, selfies, because whatever you're watching is still wild. And there's always a risk of something not going the way you want it. And I think we tend to hype up the danger or the damage animals cause to humans, but for the most part, our interactions are either neutral to positive, right? But there is an element of when it can turn the wrong way, and either they get injured, we get injured, or there's negative consequences for both, right? And I think you never forget in the presence of a wild animal.
So never lower your guards.
Never. It's stupid. And you're asking for it then.
Can you cite an example where things went wrong?
For me, it's never gone wrong when we are doing the work, because whether it's me or my team, we follow the rules of the discipline, right? So you never provoke animals, you never tease them, you never feed them, you never call out to them, and you maintain a respectable distance, whether you're on foot, whether you're in a jeep. I often see now, if you look at safaris across India today, right, that obsession of getting closer and closer and closer, and you have elephants charging at vehicles, you have tigers coming at vehicles, and there is no need to do that, right? Why are you provoking an animal to a point where it's doing something just out of its own fear.
Who suffers more at that moment as people cross the line? Is it the humans or is it the animals?
I think it's the animals, because for us, I mean, we work on human-wildlife conflict as one of the main issues that we work with. And it's very easy to attribute blame to the animal. The tiger did this, the bear did this, the leopard did this. But I feel like people in general are getting more complacent, more provocative, and are pushing the boundaries of these animals as well, right? And I don't know if it's the world we live in, where on your cell phone you have the ability to take pictures, and so this obsession of getting closer and closer, or I have the best picture, is what's driving all of this. But I think we have to maintain certain boundaries, whether it's a frog or whether it's a bee or whether it's an elephant, right? And the bigger the animal is, the more we seem to want to push them.
Interesting. So I'll take this to the mainstream, talking more about your work. But before we get there, just so that the audience realize the correlation, what made you think that this is actually the mission of my life, and what actually is the mission that you're trying to fulfill?
So for me, I am not a typical wildlife scientist, biologist. Historically, if you look in our field, most people come because they love the animal or they love a particular national park like Nagarhole or Kana or Ranthambore. I came at it because I think during my undergraduate, my undergraduate degree was not in wildlife, it was actually in environmental science. And when I was studying, there was exposure to economics, to anthropology, to sociology, to geography. So I came at it from a very interdisciplinary mindset that to look at protecting wildlife, what are the human problems you have to solve, and what are the opportunities you have to create so that people don't retaliate against wildlife, right? If you look at India today, less than 5% of India is protected for wildlife. If you look at functional, really functional, maybe 1 to 2% of India is there for non-human Indians. Everything else is in service of humanity, right? 1.4 billion people, several hundred million, still almost a billion people still living in
Yep.
lower to abject poverty. And unless we solve that end of the spectrum of helping people, uplifting them, giving them economic empowerment, the poorest Indians live next to our richest wildlife, right? So unless you bridge that gap and problem solve, wildlife are going to continue to pay the price for, development.
Do you think we as a human race have excessively abused the fact that calling us superior and probably getting to a level where we are the only one that matters on the planet?
Oh, absolutely. I think without a doubt, we are the most destructive species on the planet, and getting more destructive by the day without recognizing there's millions of other life forms. And this superiority is also, I think, an inflated sense of superiority, because now there's a lot of amazing research being done on animal communication and animal intelligence. And people know about whales, they know about dolphins, they've learned a little bit about gorillas and chimpanzees. But there's a whole world of um, learnings to come from multiple species. And if you wipe them out before we can even learn from them, the the arrogance of the human race continues, right? And we are going to pay the price for some of this immediately, some of this not in our lifetimes, but in maybe in our grandchildren's lifetimes, right? So
You spend this problem statement in your mind for last 28 years on ground zero. Do you think that it's getting worse or do you think it's getting better?
I am an optimist, so I hate saying it's getting worse. I think in some places, yes, it's absolutely getting worse, simply because there's not enough space for wildlife and people to coexist. We're fighting over land, we're fighting over water, we're fighting over other resources. But I've also seen that simple solutions can make a difference for lots of people, and that can suddenly accelerate a problem that nobody's been really solving for a long time to making a difference. So I'd like to remain an optimist in the sense that I feel like doing good research, pairing with technology, pairing with rapid advances will help bridge this gap quicker if we come up with the right solution.
Tell us more about your work. What do you do and how is it creating a positive impact?
So originally, I think I would say in the first 15 years of my career, I was a typical scientist, design a research project, build a team. In our case, there's no lab. Our lab is the wildlife park.
Right.
It is outside working in nature, right? Go collect data, write up, learn sophisticated statistical analysis, write up and publish a paper. And that was the check off to being a superstar scientist is you publish in good journals. For me personally, about 15 years ago, after having done that, I started to get very frustrated with the fact that, yes, we were documenting the problem, we were documenting the challenges, we were documenting the crises, but none of the research is actually going to solve the problem. And I'm very, very proud to say that in the last 10 years, we have designed a whole bunch of conservation programs at Center for Wildlife Studies, which are solving the problem. And I'm much, much happier today saying, yes, there are no more problems being created, there are new ones coming, but at least we're not being passive, unbiased scientists, and the passion for these animals and passion for these places continues to drive impact.
Dr. Krithi, I come from a corporate world. Let's simplify it. I come from that segment of Indians who care for animals, but we call ourselves commoners who are not able to do much in terms of raising awareness or creating a ground level impact. If people like us, in any form of mean, want to join your mission, how can we positively contribute?
So I think there's many things we can do. The first is the biggest gift I always tell people is actually giving time to an organization or a cause, whatever it be, right? I think that is a very enriching thing. It's very easy to write a check and say, I'm giving you X amount of money for this year and I commit to 5 years. Come be part of the work, come see the work. Yeah, it's hard to do it over 1 or 2 days, but take a few days off, take a week off, or if you're lucky enough, take a month off, come and spend time with us seeing the work. And I think that emotional connect to why this is important happens when you see it and you participate in it, right? So first thing is, if you are interested in wildlife, go volunteer your time. And there are many good organizations in India, and we're all always looking for people to volunteer. We've taken 7,000-8,000 people with us to do, you could volunteer on a science project, you can volunteer on a conservation project, you can volunteer on an education project, you can volunteer in our Bangalore office and be part of our comms team and our media. So there's many ways to contribute, right? I think knowledge and skills is the biggest gift. I also think, now that we all are also successful in raising funding in India,
Right.
Many people like you run companies. So if you look at CSR funding today, 95% of it goes to education, religion, and health. Wildlife and environment gets less than 0.0001% of the CSR funding in this country. Diversify the funding to non-traditional fields and non-traditional organizations. Open up the mind to say, environment broadly and then wildlife in particular need more support. And I'm not just saying CWS, I'm saying all organizations need that kind of support. And we're not a poor country anymore. All of this can accelerate change and impact, right?
If you were to look at and pin India on a global map in terms of our cognizance, our awareness, and the efforts that we're putting in to conserve our wildlife when you compare to some of the other countries, where do you think we sit? Do we sit on the top quadrant? Do we sit on the bottom quadrant? We are somewhere in middle.
So for the natural heritage we have in terms of diversity, we're in the top 17 countries in the world. In terms of what we're putting towards protecting that is very little. If you look at the top 5 global conservation organizations, 4 are American, 1 is British. They're operating at budgets of $400 to $500 million a year. You look at the top 5 in India, we're operating at $2 to $10 million a year. How are you going to save India's wildlife and biodiversity on such a tiny budget, right? So the scale mismatch is enormous. And so the vision is missing of let's really take this seriously, and the urgency is higher in India because one, the land base is smaller. Even countries like Bhutan, Costa Rica, which are much smaller than us, have decided that 30% of their country is going to be locked up in wilderness, right? We are struggling to save our 5%, right? So unless we, in this next 20, 30 years where India gets to, one of the top developed countries in the world, it's going to come at a price, and that should not be the environment. I think that is a no-go. And so this is my worry, and in the fact of it just needs an infusion of massive imagination back-ended by, all kinds of support to really make sure wild India stays wild.
So a lot of sense of urgency needs to be at every level, right? If you were to use this medium just to amplify your voice, some of the most burning issues that needs immediate attention.
I would, for me, it's three things. One, there's not enough land for wildlife. All of the land that we have, this 700 odd wildlife parks, are wholly and solely under government control. If you look at how wildlife is protected in other parts of the world, whether it's in Kenya or Ecuador, Tanzania, Costa Rica, there are public-private partnership models to wildlife. So we definitely need individuals, communities, organizations, and partnerships to scale. How do we build this land base for wildlife? It cannot just be one solo manager of wildlife in India. Second is, if you look at the three largest threats, it's direct persecution of wildlife, which is hunting and wildlife trade, and this is illegal poaching of wildlife. Second is conflict, which is the retaliation for losses that people face, but it's also real losses that rural India faces from wildlife. The third is the growth of infrastructure, right? You have a booming economy, you have to put in those 4 to 6 lane highways, you have to put in energy infrastructure, you have to build water and energy supply to support 1.5 billion people. It cannot be done at the cost of wildlife. Build under bridges, build over bridges, find alternate energy, find alternate roads that can be built. And so I think we just need to really put together a really large scale master plan that ensures that the infrastructure piece doesn't wipe out the connectivity we have for wildlife. Right.
We often romanticize wildlife to a level, right? But when you look at when the rubber hits the road, when the collision happens, it's often quite painful, sometimes for humans as well. Imagine a farmer losing his crops, losing his land, being on the other side of what we're trying to do. How do you balance it? What are the things that can be done towards that? Do you think that's always an upper hand where it's always a human-centric decision versus animals winning?
No, I don't think so. So, I mean, we've worked on human wildlife interactions and conflict for almost 20 years now. What we are very fortunate is that a lot of the losses are, 80% of the losses are still people losing their crops and some pipe and fences. Those can be easily compensated for and monetized, right? Another 10-15% is people losing livestock, which is cows, goats, sheep. That can also be replaced. Where the danger comes and naturally retaliation happens is if somebody is killed or injured. And that is less than 1-2% of the problem, which is amazing given the high densities of people who live next to wildlife in India, right? And I think in those cases, first address the loss of life or injury. Many times hospital bills don't get paid for months together. Thankfully, human death finally has made it to the sort of the public conscience of if somebody gets killed, you need to give compensation, right? But compensation is just one piece of it. So I do think a lot of this is solvable. We've been running a conflict response program called 𝗬𝗂 for this is our 11th year. We started in 2 parks in Karnataka. We're in 30 parks today in Kerala, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu. By the end of the year, we're at 40 parks. And there, the idea was very simple. You call a toll-free number, our team comes and helps assess what the loss is and help files the claim. And the unique part of this program and why it's been successful is we don't dispense money for their loss. There is a government fund used efficiently or inefficiently at different points in time. We play the role of the bridge, make sure the claim is filed for illiterate people, photographs are given, the forest guard comes and stands in the picture to make sure it's a valid claim. We take care of all the transaction costs.
Right.
So that they can access government funding. And these are all very, very simple solutions. We've applied this to other parts of Indian society. We've applied it to healthcare. We've applied it to, agricultural benefits going to farmers. You just need to apply it in the wildlife context now. So I think this is where low tech and high impact can be achieved on a lot of these issues.
Have you often felt torn between your compassion for humans and your compassion for animals?
No, I am very clear that there's billions of people showing compassion for humans, and I'm very clear that my compassion and empathy, love, everything's going for animals.
This lifetime belongs to the animals.
And all lifetimes, if I happen to come back, will belong to non-humans.
Dr. Krithi, getting a little deeper into what you just said about the coexistence, we often celebrate heroes conserving the wildlife. But it's often the case that people who are living next to the wildlife are the real heroes. Do you agree to this statement?
Absolutely. I think we owe so much to people in our villages living next to these parks, right? We have come across people, in the last 11, 12 years who've lost crops to elephants, 50, 100 times in 11 years.
Wow.
You show me one urban Indian who would tolerate a monkey coming to their house, the same number of times. We get so het up about, either a rhesus macaque or a langur showing up on our roof, right? Imagine this happening with much more dangerous animals at higher frequency. So I think, and it's a blessing that Indians are so tolerant of wildlife. I have not seen another country in the world like this.
Help me amplify one or two such stories. A lady in the village, a farmer,
Yeah.
or a forest worker. Any true heroes that you want to amplify?
I mean, there are. I can describe incidents to you to show you the level of tolerance, right? We've met many families who, many people whose family members have been killed or injured by an animal. And to date, you go back to any of them and ask them, would you like that tiger shot or that elephant shot? And the answer, I would say 99.99% of the time would be no. These animals have a right to exist just like us. And I have heard this, doesn't matter whether it's in Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Kerala, Karnataka, Rajasthan, doesn't matter where you go. I've heard this answer come at me in the same form over and over again, that these animals have existed as long, if not longer than humans, right? This is a big distinction between a rural Indian and an urban Indian. And unfortunately, I think urban Indians, either we romanticize this and we want to save every dog, every cat, or we kind of ignore the plight of people and say that tiger matters more than the person living next to the tiger. And there has to be a balance that has to creep into these conversations.
There are communities. So I will give a recent example. One of my trips to Jodhpur, and in around Jodhpur, as you know, the Bishnoi community, they really have pledged their life towards.
And there are many, Sunny, there are many communities like this, right? The Bishnois come up a lot. They're a well celebrated community. And for me, this is part, it doesn't matter. We work in rural Odisha, Andhra, Telangana, Maharashtra, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Goa. I've heard this story everywhere. It is this, I think, this combination of some of it driven by Hinduism, some of it driven by or animistic gods that we have so many of, right? Vegetarianism, ahimsa, like all of this muddled together creates an Indian ethos for non-humans that I have not seen replicated in any country in the world. And that to me is a huge reason why, despite all the challenges, we're still holding on to wildlife in this country.
Do you think that, it's a great thing what we are seeing, but we spoke about Hinduism, we spoke about ahimsa, we spoke about the fact that we are vegetarians and we try to live by that side. But on the other side, we also see disturbing stats. We are the largest exporter, or at least the top two exporters of beef
Yeah,
in a country worshipping cows.
yeah.
Um, we're talking about wildlife here. Let's look at the domestic animals. The most abused domestic animals, unfortunately, happen to be in India, the largest poultry exporter in the world. Somewhere, do you think we have dual standards?
Absolutely. I think this is also the tension of which non-human to save, right? Most people will save their pet dog and cat over everything else. And that extension to some ugly frog in the Western Ghats drops away very quickly. Tiger is sexy, but that snake is not, right? So there is obviously a differentiality that we impose on based on how big an animal is, how it looks, how it behaves, all of it, right? And what we don't realize is the richness of life still. And for me, the heritage of this country is not just its temples and its monuments and its language and its food. We have extraordinary natural heritage. And when are we going to celebrate natural heritage in India, right? And you can rebuild these monuments. You can bring back a language, maybe, right? You can recreate recipes. An animal once gone is gone forever. And yes, there are very expensive genetic experiments of people gene banking and saying, I brought an extinct species back. There is no way you can do that for all wildlife species, right? So, better to save something when it's still around than say, I'll bring it back in the future.
So, for these celebrated communities that you speak highly about, do you think, or let me put it this way, if you were to tell me one lesson that you learned from these people versus the policies that are defined in boardrooms, uh, would you have any such example that you were really able to have a logical solution to what you are in your field from ground zero, people who are right there versus people trying to define wildlife policies sitting in an urban setup?
I think, when people are losing family members to another, it's actually a lot more losses happen to elephants and bears than tigers and leopards, right? And you go to these places and unless it's a man eater for when things really get out of control, for the most part, people don't want these animals caught and put in zoos either. If you ask them, is that the solution? They're like, no, these animals have a right to exist. And that level of tolerance, which is where my fear is going, right? It's been there and it's nurtured by so many different contexts. But if we lose that tolerance, then the solution is either kill the animal or put it in a zoo. And that starts to happen more and more and more. Then we're going to really see wildlife disappear.
Talking more about, you say you stand by the non-human Indians. That's a nice way of framing it, what you just told me earlier when we spoke. Most of us, we only interact with wildlife on a vacation or walking into a zoo.
Or watching National Geographic.
Correct.
Right?
That's as close as we would get.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about 90% of urban Indians.
Yeah.
I want to know from you why it matters to us. If I'm sitting in a boardroom here in Bengaluru, cutting millions of dollars of deals, shaping the future of our country, taking India to being one of the most advanced countries in the world, and doing good by creating thousands of jobs for everybody around us and creating an ecosystem that will thrive. Why is it important for me to worry about what's going to happen to my non-human Indian in a jungle somewhere. I'm trying to create more awareness. So there's no pun intended in this question.
Yeah.
But I want to seek your inputs and seek your help to awaken that Indian who's in an urban setup. Why do you think it matters to me?
So I think this is where we as a field have failed, because we've used a lot of logical arguments to get to people, right? So ecologically, people will say that, systems will collapse if you take the top predators out. In a lot of places, we've lost our top predators. We have not seen the full extent of ecological collapse, right? People will use an economic argument that there's hidden designs in nature that will be lost forever, or there's medicinal value, particularly in the plant world, of a cancer drug or whatever. Again, putting human at the center. And so we will try and find logical ways of why we need to save nature, whether it's ecological, whether it's economic, now climate, right? And for me, those are very hard arguments to sell to an average human being. For me, it is, what's your definition of this country? What are you patriotic about? And my definition of this country is that there are 1.5 billion people, but there are 400 plus mammal species, there's 1500 plus bird species, there's another 400 plus amphibian species, and the list goes on, freshwater fish. And there are so many things we haven't discovered, yet new species being discovered even today. And when you think science has kind of achieved the discovery, exploration, solved that piece of it, right? So for me, it is, what do you define as your heritage? What do you define as India? What do you define as globally important? And it is because these ecological, economic arguments only go so far. It goes with some people. I mean, look at the number of people who are against climate change, and because we're trying to use logic and rationale to get it into people's head that eventually this will affect all of us, that onto balance sheets you have to do some negative cost accounting of the environmental consequences of whatever business you're running, right? Either you don't do it or you fudge it at this point. And all of these arguments only go so far. I think during COVID, we actually saw glimpses of it where people got locked up and a lot of wildlife came back into people's yards, streets. Suddenly everybody's a photographer, everybody is an artist. You have a binocular, you're watching birds on your balcony that you never observed before, right? So the quietness and stillness and joy of nature, if you've not conditioned it in your day-to-day life or some part of your week, then you get immune to just living in a human world. And COVID kind of brought that back in many people's lives. And I think everything has a right to live for its own value without how does it make human lives better, right? And we're always saying, if you do this, there's a benefit to people. And I think you have a moral, ethical right, if you are the superior species, to protect those who can't protect themselves.
Is it more than just conservation about the animals? Is it more about conserving the Indians that we ought to be?
Yeah, and what is your definition of Indian, right? And there's a disconnect between animals and plants. If you had people would pick animals over plants any day, right? Plants have so much value inherently, right? So where you draw the line for life?
For me, it's simple. But I always get this: you eat plants, you also kill them.
Yeah.
But they don't have a central nervous system.
Yeah,
They don't
correct.
experience pain.
Correct. So, well, now there's enough research showing that entire networks of trees are talking to each other through their roots,
Through
right?
their
So
roots,
that
yes.
is not even true anymore. We don't know. We don't have enough knowledge yet to dismiss
Dismiss that.
plants.
It's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
That makes it more complicated.
Yeah.
Do you think the growth of India is somewhere going to come at a price of wildlife?
I absolutely think so. And for me, it's not that we don't have the resources and technology and the science to save wildlife in India. All of that is there today. It's not like what India was when we got independence, right? All of this has come to play. It's applied in other fields. We are just not putting it in full force to protect nature today in India.
Do you feel helpless?
Sometimes, but I also feel if none of us did this, then nothing would happen. So, how much can each person do? How much can each organization do? But how much more we can do, right?
So, you look at the city around us that we are in.
Yeah.
So many lakes, so many gardens.
This
It's
city
just-
had 500 lakes, by the way. We're down to less than 130 lakes in Bangalore today. This is one city, right? It was the city of lakes.
unimaginable.
But we don't want to fix things, you know. There's just I think a greed in so many ways that we live our lives, right?
But if we fail to fix this, and if we fail to value this coexistence or the balance of the nature, where do you think this is taking us? Where do you think we'll eventually fail as a human race?
I think we'll lose our soul. There is no doubt about it. And I can already see, I mean, one of my children is 19 years old. And that generation already lives in eco-anxiety, which is this perpetual state of anxiousness that the environment and the planet is in trouble, but a sense of helplessness that you as one set of people cannot do anything about it, right? So you're just going to compound that every 10 years with every generation or half generation that comes along. And I mean, there's always this, your generation did this. We said this about our grandparents' generation, right? So when are we going to stop pointing fingers and say, let's do something about this?
We spoke about the challenges, we spoke about the darker side of where we are heading towards. But let's also talk about the optimistic side. You said you are an optimist, right? Let's talk about the good things that are happening in our country and across the globe that's helping the cause. Can you tell us a few things?
I think one thing which clearly stands out is the number of people aware of environmental issues, wildlife issues is enormous today. I just put it back to when my father started his career. He was a true oddball among many people saying, we don't understand why somebody would want to collar and study tigers, right? That's not there today. Everybody's interested in the issue. There's, thanks to open information available, the lack of information is not the issue. It is the, how do you talk to the powers that may be to kind of accelerate solutions that we have, right? So, I think public awareness is at an all-time high, but inaction is what is going to get us.
So still hope.
Absolutely. And I mean, we work with a lot of children in remote parts of India, and the excitement through our conservation education program is there. Like, kids want to learn about purple frogs and lion-tailed macaques and rare Indian wildlife, and it's just that they've not had the opportunity to do so. Where are you going to create the opportunities so more people can engage? And I think with our field, the problem is we're always talking about everything going wrong, and you don't give somebody one tangible solution, and there isn't one. That's the challenge. But like you said, what can people do? I always say volunteer. Give your time to a cause, then you'll understand how complex it is. Don't ask me for one solution. There isn't one solution.
With that, we'll move on to the rapid fire. I
Okay.
usually throw questions at my guest and I expect them to give me spontaneous responses. But I'm going to tweak it in your case because of the field you belong in. We're going to have it very short, sharp, and revealing.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk about a few animals and you tell me what comes naturally to your mind. Shall we?
Yeah, sure.
So one word for tiger.
Majestic.
One word for elephant.
Caring.
Caring. Nice. One moment in the wild that you never forget.
When I got charged by elephants on foot 3 times.
Oh my God. And how did you survive that?
Run. 200-meter dash, the elephant can come at you, but after 200 meters, you keep running, they won't come.
Just out of curiosity, how fast can they run?
Oh, they can, 200 meters they can run.
Fast.
So they can't see very well. They can smell well. So you could be standing right next to an elephant, but if they haven't smelt you, you're completely safe. It's when the wind changes and they smell you is all hell breaks.
A species that does scare you.
I'm not a big fan of snakes, and it's illogical. I'm a wildlife scientist. I know there's only 4 poisonous snake species in India of hundreds. But yet it's my gut instinct is like, for a second I'll be taken aback.
A species that breaks your heart.
I would actually I don't know, elephants again, because they're very almost live as long as us, right? 60 to 80 years. They have deep family bonds, and the reason I said that is, when elephants are pregnant, they carry a calf for 22 months.
Yeah.
And when they lose a calf, and I've seen this with one herd of elephants, when the calf died, the mother, the sister, the aunts, everybody stayed with the body of that dead calf for 4 days.
Wow.
So why do you assume humans mourn and animals don't, right? So these things we're just discovering, and I think if people understood that about animals, that we have so much in common, the moral superiority would come down very quickly.
Even look in the eyes of the audience. One myth about conservation that you would want to end forever.
This is not rapid fire. This is a very deep question.
So, like I said, it will be revealing as well. So, you can take your time.
That taking pictures is going to save animals. Making films, unless you do more than that, go look at the government efforts, independent organizations like ours working, communities working. It's going to take a lot of people to protect a species, not one stunning image of a tiger.
Hope or urgency?
Urgency.
Coexistence or control?
Neither.
And why is that?
You can't control nature. It's going to throw surprises at you all the time. And I think coexistence is also a happy sort of romantic notion, and I think sometimes we have to win, sometimes animals would win, and this cycle keeps going on.
One sentence every policymaker needs to hear.
Do something for non-human Indians.
Well said. With that, we end the rapid fire and we move towards what I'm going to frame as your legacy that you want to leave behind.
Oh, that's a very dangerous word. I hate that word.
We'll try to keep it easy.
Yeah.
So, years from now, when people look back to you and your work, what is the trace that you would want to leave behind in their minds?
That I try everything. So I love doing science. I got into storytelling, got into education, got into conservation, and I do this by enriching my life with people who are artists, who are very different from me, and so the spirit of collaboration to keep learning. So it is a jack in the box. I'll never be good at one thing, but I will keep trying 1,000 things, and I'm a very curious and imaginative person. So
if the world has to understand just one truth from your journey, what truth would that be?
I'm very clear about who I love, what I want to do, and not just professionally, even personally, right? My friendships, my family. So nobody can kind of really pressure me into things that I don't want to do. And whatever I do with like complete love and passion for. I can't do anything in half measure.
For somebody who's sitting in a city apartment right now watching our show, how can they join your journey? How can they positively contribute towards what you're doing?
Come volunteer with us. Come see these animals. If animals are not your cup of tea, then come to the villages we work in, talk to the farmers we work with, talk to the Asha Anganwadi workers we work with. I think even giving your time to the human side of this will help the animals in the long run.
And my last question to you is there a closing statement that you would want to make that amplifies this whole conversation?
I think for me, humans are very lucky. We get to control our fate in many, many ways. We underestimate the power we have to help others, and not just other humans, but really extending this to helping non-humans.
This is more of a conversation that, as you were talking and as I was trying to visualize, I could see forest, I could see wildlife, I could see the challenges that you would have faced in this journey. I could also see hope. I could also see the good things. And I could also kind of relate to everything making sense, spending 3 decades behind a purpose is something that makes you very strong. It's not something that weak commoners can do, because most of us, we choose ease, we choose luxury, we choose an easy driven life versus what you are trying to build for yourself and for the non-human Indians. That is something that I take as a great inspiration from what you just shared with us. And for that, I'm very thankful to you for being on the show.
Thank you, Sunny. It was a great pleasure and super fun talking to you.
I also wish that we are able to create more and more awareness, not just through this episode, but through a series of things that we can do together to make sure that your voice is heard at the right channels, in front of the right people. I still believe that we are a wonderful community as a country. I still believe that every Indian means a lot of good things. Uh, feel that it's more about direction setting, it's more about prioritization, and it's more about awareness over anything else.
And not just they versus us.
Correct.
There's goodness in every person. There's, I think, good intent in most human beings. There's positivity. And how do you tap into that, right?
So, on behalf of all the Indians watching this show today, I would like to thank you for the amount of work that you put in this space. It's truly commendable. I'd like to thank your parents, I'd like to thank your grandfather. 3 generations of efforts going in the right direction. Very, very inspiring. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much. I hope there are many more people who do this, right? It's all hands on deck at this point. So,
well said. Thank you once again.
Thanks.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Krithi Karanth continues to make us believe that when it comes to India, it's for coexistence for everyone, not just humans. And I'm sure you took a lot of great learnings from today's conversation with her. Please make sure that you follow to this channel so that I'm able to bring more such meaningful conversations at your doorstep every single week. Until then, this is me signing off. Thank you so much.